All right. Well, thanks for joining in, everybody. My name is Mike Davila. I'm one of the partners of College Inroads. Really happy to be with you this evening as we talk through one of my favorite parts of this entire process of applying to schools, which is crafting college essays. I know that this sometimes causes a lot of confusion. A lot of people are wondering what's going on with it. Why are we talking about this in May? All those kinds of things. But yeah, we've got a lot of information to share and go over with you this evening. Just a little bit about our format. We do a webinar every month for our clientele, and we'll hit a different topic every month. We record these sessions. If you ever want to come back to this is available in the file section of your students portal. It'll be up there tomorrow. It is a meeting format. So if you would like later in the process to ask questions, you can either chat them into the chat function or you can unmute yourself and ask the question live. Either is totally acceptable. We don't have a huge crowd here tonight of hundreds of people, so feel free to jump in and ask questions as you like. My partner Anne-Marie Hatfield is here and she's joining, and she'll also be monitoring the chat room for questions as those come in. Typically, we like to spend about 20-25 minutes talking about the topic at hand and then just boom, blowing it open and talking about anything and everything that you guys may have questions around when it comes to college stuff. So there's the laydown for this evening's presentation. So what are we going to cover tonight? The first question I'd like to talk about is, hey, what are admissions people looking for in admissions essays? Are they important in this day and age? If so, how much? Things like that. We all need to know that background. What are the different types of essays that my student might actually have to tackle during this process? Where to begin, how to write a really nice essay, when do we start working on these puppies, how to actually get this into college inroads for review and critique. We'll share a few example essays to kind of just wet people's whistles. There's a lot more that we have that are examples in our back pocket, but we're just going to share a few of those tonight. And then we're going to share a few essays, do's and don'ts. So that's kind of the topic list for this evening's presentation. Okay, so a little bit of house cleaning for today's session. If you wouldn't mind just muting yourself until you have a question, that'd be very helpful. Again, you can ask questions during the presentation, and there are no bad questions at all. So there is no shaming. There's no shame in asking a question because chances are, if you're asking it in your head, someone else is also doing the same thing. So, a couple things that the class of 2025, the juniors, soon to be seniors, should all be thinking about. One is creating, revising, or updating the resume. For many of the students I've been working with personally, they started this process probably back in October of last year, so or something like that. So there's changes, there's updates, and maybe, just maybe, they haven't looked at it since then. So it's always really good to go into essay writing season, application season with that resume completely filled in. Okay. Recommendation letters. We've been harping on that. You've probably seen emails and notifications from us regarding that. So now is the time to identify the people that are going to write the recommendations, get their emails, get ready to have them write that recommendation as soon as the Common App opens in August, September. Researching the schools list. Yes, this is the season to be narrowing the college list to 8 to 10 colleges. That's kind of the goal. And the educational consulting team is in the process of rating everyone's list. Just so that you know, by the end of May, everyone's list will have color coding in terms of possible admittance chances. Just keep in mind, these are humans doing this. It's not a machine. So there's variability there. Demonstrating interest, absolutely. There's still a bunch of schools that track demonstrated interest through the admissions process, including things like visiting campuses. That's a really great thing to be thinking about right now. Hey, when do I want to visit my top choice colleges? Should I do it in the summer? Should I go in the fall? That sort of thing. I just talked to a student. We were brainstorming some essays, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to be doing an SAT in July." I said, "Great. How are you studying for that?" So then we had a discussion about the proper way of getting the highest possible score in that SAT. So yeah, studying for that, even though I know it's painful to mention because APs are just wrapped up, but yeah, for some of us, there's no rest for the weary. Um, and then visiting campuses, we mentioned that a little bit, and then finishing the semester strong. That's really important because we're in the sixth semester. This is the final semester that colleges will see on our official transcript when it comes to evaluating us for admissions chances. So that's important that we finish this really strong. So let's talk about essays just from a super big perspective. Like, hey, who's responsible for what in this process? So, for college inroads, our responsibility is to help your student brainstorm their essay topics, which there may be many. It just depends on how many schools we're applying to, et cetera, et cetera. But we are definitely on the hook to help your student brainstorm those essay topics. We're also responsible to help critique the essays that the student drafts. So we have a whole staff of people behind the scenes. Some of these people are writers, publishers, former admissions reps. These people have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of essays in their past. So they're tasked to critique, comment on the content and the style of the essay. Um, we can also help with co-writing. What do I mean by that? There are some times when students just get stuck. We're up against a wall, we can't figure out what to write next. And we do have specialized essay folks who can help them, what I call co-writing, which is live writing person to person on Zoom. So if you need that kind of support, we're either going to identify it or you can ask for it. So that is available. The student, their sole responsibility, which is a lot, by the way, is they're responsible for the content and submission of their essay. So it's got to be their work and their voice. They need to be on top of the due dates. Yeah, we're going to nudge them. Yes, we're going to be working way ahead of all those due dates. But every once in a while, students kind of lose track of things. We want to make sure everyone knows, hey, students, you've got all the due dates in your portal. You've got to hit those. And we also reserve a 10-day lead time up against those deadlines in the fall. For your knowledge, most early action, early decision deadlines are either going to be coming mid-October or the first or thereabouts of November. So we have plenty of time to be writing these essays. But just to let you know, it does get hectic on our side right up against those deadlines. So we want to get as many of these reviewed, critiqued now as early possible. So what to expect for drafts? Guess what, gang? They're almost always beat up. That's good. You want to have those people saying, behind the scenes, hey, we need to have more examples here, here, and here. Hey, this tone seemed a little bit off. Let's change this around. Here are a couple word choices. Those kinds of critiques often add up to drafts that look pretty bloody, quote unquote, on the first try. So no worries. That's pretty standard. Also, students can submit up to three revisions for every essay that they have to write. So that we found that's plenty of times to get the content right, to get all of the revisions on the table that need to be there. If you need additional help, again, you need co-writing help, you need a second set of eyes on something, just ask. Okay. What you can also expect is a supportive environment. We are not here to cast dispersions or to really be super negative toward anybody's writing at all. We're trying to be very supportive, but realistic. Okay. That said, we do have high expectations. Most of our students go to very high performing high schools and can write. And that's great. We have confidence in the student's ability to commit to the process and that they will pay attention to the critique that they've been given. So the big picture. How are college admissions essays different from high school English essays? There are quite a few things, but the main thing is that in admissions essays, these are what we call personal narratives. They are not expository essays. They're not writing to get at an author's content or their meanings. We're not comparing and contrasting things here. We're talking about our growth over a period of time. This is like an arc of progression that the student has been through usually their high school career. Talking about character traits that they've developed, stumbling blocks that they've had. You're going to see that authenticity really does sell in college admissions essays. So sometimes college admissions essays are quote unquote optional. So I put on this bullet point, why even bother with the essay? Well, let's face it, college admissions people, they can x-ray someone's file pretty quickly. You know, they can look at a transcript, they can break that down, kind of like a business owner would break down a balance sheet. They can get into those transcripts and see what type of student we are based on track records and trend analysis. They can look at test scores, all the data. What they don't know is, hey, who's behind all of this? What is the student really like? Okay. These little cues that they form from the written narratives, that's what they're taking with them into committee. You know, it's not just the data that they get from the numbers stuff, it's these personal things that we've chosen to talk about and what we've revealed to them about our character that they really need to know. So that answers that fourth really bullet point, and that causes a lot of stress for people, right? Because they're like, oh, I don't know what my character traits are, or I thought I was supposed to brag about my accomplishments. And the truth of the matter is the activities list on the Common App, or the other types of apps, that's really the thing that stands out to admissions people when it comes to accomplishments. What they really don't know is introspection, the students' introspection on how their volleyball involvement really has gone over the last 3 or 4 years. What have they gained from that? Okay. How long will an admissions rep really spend on an essay? Well, it depends on what type of essay it is and where we are in the admissions process. If we're right up front, yeah, they're going to be spending some good time. They're not going to blow through the essay right up front. At the very end of the process, when they're down to the nubbins, guess what? That's where they may be blowing through someone's essay for the fifth time, but they're reading it really quickly. So it kind of depends where the admissions rep is and where your student's record is in the admissions process as to how much time they're really going to spend. The main reason why I bring this up is that there are some people who are like, they're not really reading these essays. Nope, they actually will. They are reading them. And how many of these am I going to have to write? Most of us are going to have to write 4 to 5, kind of what I call templates, and then they're going to be using them for many other essays. So if we have 8 to 10 schools and then they're not all hyper competitive schools, yeah, we might have 10, 15 essays to write, in that range. Last year, I think we broke the record. We had a student apply to 24 schools, and that person submitted over 100 essays to us. So it really varies. It depends on which schools we're applying to and how many. It's part of the reason why we say, hey, write, do 8 to 10 schools so you don't kill yourself in writing. So in the big picture, to the admissions people, where in the pecking order is a well-written essay? And if we kind of have to break this down a little bit, number one and number two, they're pretty much the same thing. Rigor in the curriculum, how do we do on the transcript, things that's number one and number two. The SAT is still optional. SAT and ACT is still test optional in many, many schools. So that may or may not be part of our equation to apply this year, even though there are plenty of schools that now are coming back and asking for those. Passionate involvement in a few activities, that comes straight off the activities list or resume. And then here we have the essay. So we're really kind of in the top 3 or 4 factors when it comes to any kind of selective college admissions process. Okay, so the reason why I bring this up is that there are a lot of people who are like, I don't really have time to do this. I'll do this in October, November of next year, right before the essays are really due in the application. And anyone who's been around this block will say, hey, hold on, no, no, no. We really want this to be well crafted, well thought out, well executed, and that takes time. Okay, so that's part of the reason why we're starting so early. And common concerns, I don't have anything to say. Well, don't worry about that. If you feel like you don't have anything to say, the chances are you do have a lot to say because you've lived. I tell students, hey, you've lived 16, 17 years of life. You've had some experiences. You've had some goods and some bads and some others. That's what we're going to be talking about. Here's another good one. I haven't had any hard experiences to discuss. I don't have a sob story. I've heard this a couple times this year. Now, I don't know where that comes from, but no, if you don't have a sob story, great. That means your life has been pretty, positive thus far. No worries. You can focus on other things. Okay. I'm not that special. Well, guess what? You think differently. You do things differently than anybody else. You are special. Our job is to help you find what that actually is. The last couple are kind of a joke. I'm too busy. I'll do it later. No, we don't want to do that. I'm just not a good writer. Okay, that's fine. That's what we have essay editors for. Can I just put this off and do it later? Nope. I feel a lot of pressure and stress. Maybe I'll do it later. No, we don't want to do that. We want to do it now. Even though, like, I just got off the phone with a student who's got trips to Japan, he's got SATs, he's got all sorts of stuff this summer. We still need to fit this in to be on time to, do the applications themselves. So, some ghosts of Christmas past. These are words from last year's seniors. Okay, so one of the quote was, "Write your essays in advance. Do all these other things. Make sure you have the right email addresses for recommenders, things like that." That was Cohen. The second one from Logan: "Get your essay done because it takes the most time. Start early. Also, start these supplemental essays early." We'll talk about what those are here in a sec. The last one's Jake. "Hey, don't procrastinate. It's just not worth it. Just tough it out. Write your essays early." So there it is from actual students from last year's class. Some basics. Okay, so use a process. It's really interesting to me. I like to ask students, "Hey, do you have like a process that you use to write?" Most people don't. So we've got one for you here on the next slide. Yep, you want to start your essay with an anecdote or some situation that grabs your reader's attention. That's a hook. Okay, we want to have that in the first paragraph. I often tell students, think about, a story where you're kind of putting your arm around your essay reader and describing to them what's happening in the action of whatever it is. That should lead into the essay topic. Okay. That's not the only way to begin an essay, but sometimes if your reader has read 80 of these things in that day, that sometimes helps them break them out of their slumber. Okay. You also want to use active voice. That's pretty basic. When we did the essay workshop earlier this semester, we talked about that a little bit as well. And then upon completion of your draft, read the essay out loud. Does it sound right? Does it flow? Are you constantly stopping and correcting it? Those are some really important things to do just from a basic perspective. And here's that writing process I was talking about. You want to pre-write brainstorm. We're going to help with that. Again, thinking personality traits, not just accomplishments. We're going to want you to outline this. Critically think about how you're going to write this. What little stories or vignettes are you going to talk about in order? Okay. Prioritize those things. Draft it, write it out quickly. Don't wait for months to do that after your brainstorming session. And then reread and edit your essay after we've gotten feedback from your reviewer. And then finalize, read it aloud, run the spell check, grammar check, all that kind of good stuff, and then upload. And you're going to be able to rinse and repeat on that multiple times, 3 different times per essay. So here's an example. Here's the prompt. Considering your lifetime goals, discuss how your current and future academic and extracurricular activities might help you achieve your goals. Okay, I'll read this because it may be small. As the blood spurted up across Dr. Cunningham's face, I began to see just how interesting oral surgery could be. I watched as he put a collagen plug in place to slow the bleeding before my heart rate began to fall a little. And I realized that I had probably just found my perfect profession. This was the first day shadowing Dr. Cunningham, and this internship now turned into a full-time summer job. It's quite possibly the most important thing I could do to reach my goal of someday becoming an oral surgeon. Okay, great hook, right? I mean, that literally jumps right at the page. Now, when we go into the second paragraph, this is heavily edited later on, but we didn't need this second paragraph. Most of this got changed around in the final draft because most of this is coming to us from transcript or other sources. So anyway, that's a great example of kind of an interesting way to begin the essay. Okay, so a couple of tips here. Check for overused words or use the thesaurus on your computer. Sounds basic, but use words that you would normally use. I've seen the word eschew come up or spearheaded. This sounds like somebody else must have written this because most students don't use these types of words like equivocate or whatever. So we want to stay away from verbiage that is not going to be common because it has to be in the student's voice, right? Examples and stories, those are the lifeblood of an essay, honestly. The little vignettes that we choose to write about. If I had to kind of cut and paste, at least when I was essay editing, most of the time was, hey, we need an example here. Yes, we need a little story here. Yes, sounds great, but you have to show me, don't tell me. Those are the things that were really common. So it's really great to have those in your essay. Vary your sentence length, vary even the paragraph length. I've seen people successfully break the rules of English grammar and have one sentence paragraphs to emphasize the point in a dramatic way. That's completely okay. This is not an English paper. I've even seen people use not bad punctuation, but like little chopped up sentences that are essentially fragments. That's okay too, as long as it's not the entire thing. And it was very obvious that you were trying to do it that way. Paragraphs and punctuation are actually not optional. You do want to have paragraphs and check for punctuation, and Google Docs makes it really easy. Um, and then avoiding slang and things like that. The essay review team will help us if we need to on that. So the essay rules, answer the questions. Please just answer the question. It's really important because some colleges are very bad at asking questions. They'll stack like 3 or 4 questions within a single prompt. We have to answer all of those. Okay. Um, Stay within the word limits. Hey, by the way, what are the word limits? Okay, let's talk about those. For the Common App, we have 650 words for the main core essay. That's the essay that every college is going to see. That roughly equates to about a page. Okay, so that's a blessing and a curse, right? Because if we have a lot of character traits and things that we really want to make sure the college understands about us, we have to be very much use economy in order to jam everything in that we want to put in there. Also, don't try to have the mom or dad or chat GPT write this thing. That will backfire. I promise. That's not authentic. It's not something that the colleges really want. They want to hear from you authentically about your experiences. And also don't try to make something up that you think that the admissions offices are going to want to hear. That's not great. What I would recommend is think about inserting emotion, vulnerability, inner thoughts, perceptions, values, points of pride. Like I was just talking with a student and he said, "Yeah, I've come to realize, inside of me there is a doer and there's also someone who's a dreamer." And so that person's essay is going to be full of kind of reflections on that thought, using that person's activities to kind of guide that reader through that process. So tread lightly. Here's some areas where I don't want to dissuade people wholeheart, just blanche, because there's always exceptions. But I've had a lot of people try to write successful essays about the big football game where they won the championship. Okay, that's great. That also can be a successful essay. However, it is fraught because it's a team sport. They want to know about you and how you contributed, what led up to that, what preparations, rather than, hey, we executed this, final fourth down push across the goal line. Okay. The mission trip to an underserved community or country. Not to say again that this is a terrible essay topic, but just know that this gets used an awful lot. Okay. So if we're trying to stand out, that whole general topic may or may not really help us in that. Politics, yeah, I kind of find that most students right now are shell shocked and they're not politically active for the most part. So politics is you don't know who's going to be reading your essay. So I would probably stay clear of that. Anything that has to do with wealth, with privilege, its trappings, I would probably steer clear of that. And then the 4 Ds are death, depression, divorce, and learning differences. So again, not that we can't write a successful essay. If I'm going to choose one of those, I'm going to want to talk in depth with my educational consultant about how to handle those successfully. Okay. All right. A couple of words of wisdom for people who review these, thousands of these. Be yourself, write what you know. Okay. Your own experiences are just fine. That's perfect. Okay. That's what we need. Okay. Write about your passions. The thing, and these don't have to be academic passions, they can be other things outside of school. I can remember a super successful essay that one of my students wrote around race car driving because he was a race car driver. Cool. All right. Um, think about what traits do you want the colleges to know about you as a human being? That's fantastic pater right there. What events have broadened your perspectives in life? That could be negative or positive or both. Try not to talk in absolutes like I always do this, or you know what I'm saying? That concrete thinking is something that children do, sometimes even adults do. My wife likes to, tell me about this. Anyway, talking in absolutes on essays is probably not the greatest. We live in a world that's gray, lots of shades of gray. So think about the nuances of what you're talking about, not just in absolute terms. It's about process, not perfection. No one is looking for you to have been the Nobel laureate who's designed a cancer treating drug. No, that's not it. It's about a process of learning about yourself. That's where we are as teenagers right now. Okay. Be introspective, be reflective with your stories. No, don't just tell a story. Talk about how it affected you. Talk about what your thoughts were inside of yourself as it was unfolding. That's the kind of stuff that most people don't really think about. Oh, yeah, that's what the college essay readers need to hear about. And the stories definitely need to be brief because we don't have a lot of real estate. So I'm going to skip this because I know we're going to be running out of time. Yeah, essay examples. I'm just going to tell you, gang, we have a lot of these. If you'd like to see some essay examples, we have a Google Drive full of them. They're not to be used in future essays, but just to be looked at. But for the purpose of time tonight, just know that, everyone's story does matter. For example, the last paragraph here, unfortunately, my story is not rare. Girls and women around the world feel the pressure to reject and condemn femininity in order to feel worthy of respect. I know that activism, no matter what its form, will be a part of my future life. The world needs change to change for women, not the other way around. And I intend to help in effecting that change. Okay, pretty powerful statements. This is just a piece of this particular essay. There are several common apps out there that I think we need to know about because this drives which essays we'll actually need to handle. Almost no one is going to do exclusively apply Texas. Most of our students will do the Common App, the second bullet point, because now there are over 1,000 schools on it. And then the coalition, its application, there's a few schools are using that one. So the second bullet point, that's what we're going to see mostly, these 1,000 Common App members. The Common App gives us the option of writing 7 essays. We'll have to choose one. You have 7 essay prompts to choose from for the Common App. Okay, so we'll go over those in just a sec. Apply Texas, there are 3, and the college will tell you which one you have to write. And Coalition, there's 5 essay prompts. So how do you tell within your college inroad portal what app type my college accepts? So you can see UT accepts both the Common App and this funky little symbol tells us what it is. So the Common App is, let me see. Common App is this symbol that I'm mousing over, and then the Coalition app is this little funky looking C here.
And one thing on this too, Mike, if I can interject, is that
Please.
the Apply Texas does not have an icon on the screen. So every school in the state of Texas, with the exception of Rice and the University of Mary Hardin Baylor, are on the Apply Texas. The good thing too is that UT, A&M, Texas Tech, University of North Texas, almost all of the schools in Texas, including Rice as well, are on the Common App. So if your students are applying to schools outside of the state of Texas, we're almost always going to default to the Common App. We choose the path of least resistance, to be honest. So it's the platform that has the majority of the schools that are the application specialists will encourage the kids to use to apply.
Thanks, Emery. Okay, and talking about the Common App, these are the essays for Common App. So the first one, they want you to talk about a background, identity, interest, or talent. Easy peasy. That's a broad topic. Second one is obstacles that we encounter. Talking about challenges, setbacks, and failure. Okay, how did it affect you? What did you learn? Okay, that gets written quite a bit. Number 3 is not super popular because I think you have to really have an activist bent and activities list to support it. But when did you question or challenge a belief or idea? What prompted the thinking? What was the outcome? 4 is the newest Common App prompt essay. And honestly, I don't think I've helped anyone do this brainstorm because I don't know why it's just not popular. Number 5, I love 5 and 6, which are describing an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked personal growth. 6 is talk about a topic, idea, or concept that you find so engaging that it makes you lose track of time. And then 7 is a catch-all. Even if you don't see anything here on this list that is pay dirt, then we can always answer number 7 as a prompt. Okay,
And
so
if I
if
could
we're applying,
inject there, I'm sorry, if I can inject there as well, more if you have some students applying to a school like A&M, for example, more than likely they're going to make you write an Apply Texas essay, and uh, that Applied Texas essay can be used as essay 7, kind of that catch-all one, if needed, but it's not required because they'll make you put it in a different part of the application. Sorry if I muddied the waters there. Just wanted to bring that up.
no, but what Amory is saying is that we've heard from UT. We don't know about A&M what they're going to be doing this cycle for a Common App quote unquote core essay. But no matter what they write or what they ask for, we'll be able to insert it and use it as number 7 for the Common App for other schools. Okay, and if we're applying to UT, this is brand new. We just got wind of this a couple weeks ago. It's 650 words, just like everything else. Share an essay on any topic of your choice. This is essentially a catch-all essay as well. Could be one you've written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. So very open-ended. And then UT has some supplementals that these are required supplementals. So why are you interested in the major that you've indicated as your first choice? And then think of your activities both in and out of school that you've been involved with. Which ones are you most proud of and why? So again, you can see what we've been harping thus far, which is, hey, this is all about introspection. What have you learned about yourself? Why are you interested in your majors? How have you challenged yourself to learn more? Things like that, etc. So 650 words is a page, 300 words or less. That's basically give or take a little bit more than a half a page. A&M, this is last year's prompt, which is the tell us your story. This is what Anne Marie is referring to. This is SAB on Apply Texas, but this may or may not change for this next cycle. And then there's supplementals last year where tell us about a person that had impacted you and why. A life event that you feel has prepared you for college, and then engineers and STEM folks had a last supplement that talks about how did you come into, apply to this as a potential major. Okay, so supplements, just a couple notes on this. College, the Common App, shotguns out this core essay to all of the Common App schools that you apply to. But each Common App member school can say, hey, we want to have a couple specialty questions that are just for us. Okay. So here are a couple of examples. Like Tufts a couple of years ago asked, hey, celebrate your nerdy side. We want to hear about that. Wake Forest saying, hey, things that fascinated you when you were 10, what's still here? What's still fascinating? Caltech, talk about an unusual way you've had fun. And then I love Brandeis's, which is, hey, a package shows up after seeing the contact. It's going to be the best day of your life. What's inside? How do you spend your day? So that's a fun question. Some of these can be really random, very short, like 40 words. Some are a little longer. Some can be as long as a Common App core essay. Okay, so I'll read this one just because it's a good example of a supplement. If you'd like to share a perspective you bring or experiences that you've had that will help us understand you better, perhaps a community that you belong to or your family or cultural background, we encourage you to do it here. Okay, got it. 250 words or less. So a lot of people look at this and go, oh my gosh, I am, white and female, let's say. I don't have a special community group. No, this could be any community. Okay. So this student wrote about a band kind of scenario. So they're paying you to do what? My mom's words reverberated in my head as we stood in the blazing sun waiting to begin. Don't they know that you're just high school kids? The memory of the dismay on my mom's face swam into my mind's eye as the wedding party assembled. I felt the sting of sweat, my hands growing slick. I became lightheaded, my baritone sax a yoke around my neck. This is our first professional gig, with the bride about to walk down the aisle to our music. We called ourselves the McPhailures in homage to our saxophone teacher, Mr. McPhail, as the one tasked with maintaining tempo and starting and stopping each piece. I couldn't let our name become an omen. I glimpsed Caleb looking to me for reassurance. I closed my eyes, took a steadying breath, and images of my mom's horror dissipated. We spent years preparing for this moment. Since middle school, the 5 of us had dedicated countless hours to exploring, arranging, and recording music. This impromptu group bolstered my confidence and engendered my playing, or sorry, engendered my willingness to take on uncomfortable new challenges in music and beyond, such as this wedding, playing at Carnegie Hall, and leading student organizations. At Duke, I aspired to play at the marching band, pep band, jazz ensemble. With the ceremony starting, I opened my eyes to look purposely at each ensemble member. I winked at Caleb. I gave the cue. We took a collective breath and began to play. That's it. And yep, that student got into Duke. Here's another quick example supplement. This student had a prompt, please tell us what influenced you to select your major. And this is short, 100 to 200 words. Here, I have a passion for telling other people's stories. I talk a little bit about the Vanderbilt voice. I discovered my talent for editing when this, and this happened. My advisor encouraged me to join the UIL journalism team because of these things. I think I have journalistic potential. I want to hone it into a skill, blah, 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 blah. Great. I mean, this is pretty basic, very direct, very straightforward because we only had a paucity of word count to deal with. And this particular student ended up at Syracuse in their journalism program. Okay, other essay questions. Please provide an answer if you wish to provide details of circumstances or qualifications not reflected in the application. Yeah, that's a catch-all question. If you had an issue with a teacher in sophomore year, hey, I had a concussion my freshman year after getting checked into the hockey, the glass. Yeah, I've seen it all. Okay, that's a good place to put all that. Hey, why are you a good fit for my school? That's a sales job. That's a marketing question, right? How have you shown leadership in the past? And then talk about one of your extracurriculars. So if you're stuck, if you need co-writing, text us through the portal. Let us know. If you need examples, text us. Or you can go to College Essay Guide. That's a really great website. Or go to Essay Hell. Either one of those is great to kind of help out with being stuck. Hard and fast rules. Please do allow a 10-day lead time for essay critique and review. If it's super last minute, we can't guarantee that it'll actually get reviewed. Submit essays into the website and the portal. I'm not going to go into that tonight, but there is a written guide and a video on how to actually do it. Your educational consultant will show you how to do it in session as well. Submit, please, only Google Docs. We don't have access to pages or PDF editing. So logistics, yep, the students is in control for proofreading, spell checking. We'll definitely do that, but really you want our essay readers to be thinking about content rather than these other things. Okay, please don't plagiarize. I don't really need to spend too much on that. Yeah, how do I submit? We just talked about there's a guideline that's already in each student's essay section of their files. It is definitely important to hit the deadline because if we don't hit the deadline, then the writing will will not be part of the application, and many times that's required. If I need a second opinion, this comes up once in a great while where a student says, "Hey, I got a review back that I don't quite understand or get. Can I get a second opinion?" Of course. Okay. We can send that to a different one of our essay staff members. And then a word on artificial intelligence. We've already, hit this. Basically, steer clear of this. That's the best thing. The best use, if you're going to absolutely use AI, would be to outline the essay. Do not cut and paste anything out of AI into anything that you're going to submit to a college. Okay. But if you want to toss in everything about you and toss in the prompt and say, hey, here's some things, can you give me a basic outline? Maybe that's okay. I haven't seen too many people do that, but that is probably the limit of how I would personally use AI. So what are we going to do prior to applications? These are the things that we're going to mess with. We're going to talk about this what is your story question or another Common App main core essay. Each student should go into into the application season in August with a fully formed and critiqued main core essay. We should also have a leadership, a major, a college match supplement written. Okay. We'll also have one more that will deal with extracurriculars as well. Okay, so in 40 minutes, we jammed through a bunch of information on essays. So what have we learned? We talked about an essay writing process. We gained some resources, some perspective of what's being asked of us, the critical role that you as a student play in this. and a little bit about the timeline that we're on. So we want to be writing now over the summer so that when the applications open up, we've got a bevy of initial essays that we can use for the applications. One last word I'm going to say is that colleges typically do not let anyone know what their upcoming essay changes are going to be until the Common App goes live August 1st. Okay. So even after August 1st, it takes our system a little bit of time to get updated with those brand new prompts. So during that little period of time at the beginning of August, the actual Common App is the place to go and look to double check that the supplemental prompts for cuffs have not changed or have changed since last year. Okay, I think we probably talked enough to stir up a bunch of questions. So, do we have any questions here in the queue, Anne Marie?
Yeah, I answered this one in the chat, but the question is, how will you know the topics of essays each school in advance, for each school in advance? And so I put that they're going to be in prompt or the essay portion of the kids' website. And then I also go through the application outline research. And once I have access to that, then they'll be in there as well. But Mike mentioned this is part of our system. It's the essay portal on the website that will have the supplementals when we get them and the main core essays.
Yeah, and the other
You want
thing
to?
too, just to note, is that if you click on the writing tab, it's on the left-hand side of your student's portal, it brings up last year's prompt. So if you're curious, based on, let's say we're applying to University of Oregon, if you want to look and see what Oregon required last year, you can, as long as it's on your student's My List of Colleges under the college tab, it will show up under that writing tab. So that you can kind of peek as what last year's prompts look like.
Yeah.
Great question.
But Mike brings up a great point. We aren't going to know the supplemental essays until August 1st. A lot of schools will not change their essays, and some will. And so it's going to be really important just to know that if a student wants to submit to A&M on August 1st, we might not be able to do that because we don't know if the supplemental questions have changed yet. And it's also going to depend on how quick a writer your student is, I would say. Um,
Usually, I was going to say, just to piggyback a couple things, usually, like when I essay brainstorm with students, I typically give them 2 weeks to write a page. That's completely reasonable, unless it's AP time, which we told people no, don't do this, do APs. But now we're past AP time. It's 2 to 3 weeks is probably a good initial draft time to do this initial essay. Then you're going to get feedback. Okay. And at the same time, once we get that feedback, we're going to start launching ahead to what I call initial supplements. These are the usual suspects. Hey, why are you applying to chemical engineering? Hey, talk about an extracurricular. These you're going to recycle again and again for very, many schools. If we have time, we'll go in and start answering last year's prompts. If not, then after August 1st, we'll absolutely know what prompts we have to do. We have essay brainstorming in each one of those logic gates for your student. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Anne-Marie.
No, that's okay. Somebody's asking if we could go back to the top 12 list about things the
Sure,
colleges are looking for.
for sure.
I know
Way
that's a
back.
super popular one in the webinars that we do.
Yeah, this, by the way, came from the Independent Education Consultants of America. They survey like hundreds and hundreds of private selective schools across the country each year, and this changes from time to time. But that's where this one came from, by the way. And is there a question there on this that you wanted me to answer?
Nope. I just said, could you please go back to the top 12 list about things colleges are looking for? So,
Got it.
um,
I have a feeling we're taking a quick snapshot of that.
yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. Yep. So what other burning questions do you guys have? That is what we are here for. Happy to
Hi,
answer. You're
Anne
welcome.
Marie. This is Angie Boykin. I have a question, not really about the essay, but the Common App, because I know that's where the essay goes into. But when do we open or set up an account in the Common App?
So
Because
that's a,
oh, go
oh
ahead.
yeah, sorry. I was
I
going
was
to say
just
that's
gonna,
a really great question. Kids can start working on the Common App like right now. In fact, I'll be doing a series of application boot camps through June, up until mid-July, when the students will start sitting with their application specialist. That'll be mid-July. The goal of those boot camps is to help the kids complete the common part of the common application. So you can register for an account now if you want to. Um, the one caveat on that is I would not have the kids do anything with it at this point. Register for the account is totally fine, but I wouldn't have them start working on the actual application quite yet. And I most definitely would not encourage them to put any of the colleges on the list, because it's going to be very confusing. So for sure, you can
Okay.
register for an account now, but I would wait until those application boot camps start first week of June before the kids start putting any information into the Common App.
Got it. Thank you.
That's a great question. Thank you. Mike, another question is, if you were to pick one essay to start on now, which should he choose?
That is a great one. I was reading that as you guys were chit-chatting there. Honestly, that's a great question, Matthew. Thanks for asking it. I don't know if you have Texas A&M on your list. A&M is kind of the linchpin for that question because they are a Common App member, but this is going to sound confusing. But the essay that I'm showing you at the top, tell us your story, what unique opportunities or challenges. We've been told informally that they're going to keep that for the cycle. We don't know that for sure. That may or may not be the right answer, honestly. But if it were me and I was applying to A&M and a bunch of other Common App schools, I would do this one because I know that's going to cover A&M, and I also know I can use that for the Common App prompt number 7.
For UT, yeah. That's
Yep.
probably great. That's great advice.
Oh, thanks, partner. Anyway, uh, any other questions? I know this is a deep topic, gang. This is probably a week's worth of information you guys got crammed into 40 minutes, but the main thing I'm going to wrap up with here is you have help. You have people who understand these essays, who have been around this block a lot of times, and reach out, lean on them. If you have questions, students, do not be afraid to ask questions. I have instructed my staff to record all of your brainstorming sessions and give you a recording of it so that you have the ability to go back and write these drafts. I've instructed the essay review team to be very honest with you in terms of, how does it come across? I know that sometimes when I speak, I'm thinking I'm communicating in one way and it's being received a completely different way sometimes. So it's important to get that impartial review from those people, again, who've read a whole bunch of these things. So I
I
wish
have a
you the
question
best of
for
luck.
you. Can I
Yeah, go ahead.
real quick? So you mentioned not to use these extravagant words or anything that really doesn't sound like a high school person, but the Duke essay that you showed, those I've never heard a high schooler like use those words. And you said he or she got into Duke. So like that's not at all how my daughter speaks. And so, I'm concerned that if we're editing some of these things, like if it just doesn't like if it doesn't feel like something she would ever say, it's just a little bit confusing because you're like speaking a and maybe other high schoolers like speak like that, but like my daughter doesn't. So that's gonna feel really uncomfortable, I think. And if they ever speak to her live, they're gonna know right then and there she didn't write that. So that's just a little like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, there's a zone, right? I mean, there is the level of writing where there's colloquialisms, there's slang, complete sentences that are not meant to be, things like that. Then I have seen truly students that write at like a master's degree level. I've seen it all. And yes, the people who get into Duke, Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Princeton, they're pretty much writing at this extremely high level, most of them naturally as students. Most of us mere mortals, though, end up in the middle, right? And that's where I would say 85% of the students that we work with are at. They need some coaching. They definitely need help with word choice and, maybe fleshing out examples and things like that. But what I was gearing those comments for are for people who literally sprinkle big long words that don't really, it's not them, and it's going to be pretty obvious if there are other uh, writing samples that don't reflect the same level of writing, I guess. It used to be that the SAT writing was going to be, I mean, 5, 6, 7 years ago, when the subject exams were part of the process and the SAT writing was part of the process, you would have situations like that come up, which would just exactly what you described. You have some killer essay, but then when they have to write under I'm sorry, a timeline, like under a timed condition, they would fall to pieces. So my best advice is yes, you want to level up your writing. But that's what we're here for, is to, as reviewers, say, yeah, this word seems out of place. Here's a suggestion for you, to level up the writing, but not try to make it something that the student isn't. Because really, truly, authenticity is really to your students' benefit, truly. So I
Well,
know
they
that's a random way to answer that, but that's the best I can give you.
We definitely want it in the student's voice. And so if your student speaks at a very high level, if your student is funny, I mean, we definitely want your student's voice to come through, but we also want it to be polished, right? We want it to be the best reflection of your student possible. So, we 100% try not to change the student's voice. But, sometimes we can amp it up a little bit. I hope that answers the question.
Yep, thank you.
Perfect.
Hey, Michael, quick question. So thank you. I think this was really helpful. Given, we're a first time high school student parent, I have a question here. How does parent, how do we play a role of a parent in this whole process? Like what is our role? And, we want to help, but at the same time, it has to be, students kind of initiative and drive. So what do you suggest, what has worked in the past for us parents to help in this process?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for
Very good
asking that.
question.
As a parent, I think just asking your student, hey, how is your essay coming along? You know,
Right.
encouraging the process to move forward. We don't eat dinner with you guys. I wish we did, but if I could encourage parents, would be talk with your students. Hey, I know that you have a lot on your plate. There's a lot going on. I know college essays are an important part of the process here for you. How is that coming? Just showing concern and care. And if they're saying, hey, I'm stuck, I'm not moving forward, I'm completely flat-footed, great. Hey, have your student just text us. We can always set up a meeting. We can always have writing coaching, things like that. So I would just say check in. One of the things that had been brought to me by one of my educational consulting staff in relation to parents was this concept of too many cooks in the kitchen. Believe it or not, I have colleagues who will not allow parents to read their students' essays. No, I don't think that's right. However, on the other flip side of the whole continuum is a parent getting feedback, English teacher getting feedback, friends of the student getting feedback, we're giving feedback. Pretty soon the student is like, their heads on a swivel, with all these people trying to give them advice. And I've been taking the time to tell students, hey, listen, the people who are going to review your essay from us. I mean, how many essays did we do last year? Like 2,400? I think it was
A lot. Yeah.
it was a lot. It was
That
thousands of
sounds,
essays that we
yeah.
did. So these people who are reading your students' essays, this is not their first rodeo. So my best advice is provide support, provide the questions, provide, a little guidance. Hey, if you're getting stuck, let's get over with Inroads again. Um, and then let the essay reviewers give the critical feedback, make them the enemy, not you guys as parents. So anyway, that's what comes to my mind. Thanks for that question.
Thank you. Helps a lot. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
I can look this up, but if you guys know offhand, like when is the first day that you can apply? Like
August
this
1st.
for
August
Unless you
1st
do
is
coalition.
Yeah, unless
Yeah.
you do coalition. No, to be honest, nobody does the coalition because all of the schools on the coalition are also on the Common App. And so August 1st is the first date that the student can actually push the submit button. Some students, we do have a handful of students that will apply the first week of August. But that's if, the school hasn't changed the supplemental questions prompts. But yeah, for August 1st is the first time a student can actually hit submit.
And that's not for like early decision or anything. That's for just
Correct.
any admission. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Early action deadlines are October 15th, November 1, November 15 are probably the three most popular. UT now has an early action deadline of October 15th. A&M for engineering is October 15th. Pretty much everybody else is either November 1. I think Georgia Tech is also
Georgia
October
Tech.
15th. Pretty
Yeah.
much everybody else is November 1 or November 15.
I think it's a great question, Christy. Thanks for asking that. The one thing I would like to just toss in there is that most colleges are not sitting committee at that point in time. Most of them, most students have a hard time submitting that early because they have to have all their teacher recommendations done. They have to have the transcript, the official transcript. Some high schools aren't going to have that done until August. Some recommendation letter providers are like, hey, I'm not going to write this until September. So there are a lot of other mechanical things that have to be in place, including the essays, before someone could hit send on that application. And most people can't get all that done not because of their own fault, but because of other limitations external to the student or the family. So just keep that in mind. The other thing is most colleges, when they sit in committee, they do batches of applications during the process, right? Emery mentioned early action, early decision 1 or 2. There's a lots of different little logic gates. There's only one type of school out there that will kind of start reviewing stuff as colleges receive applications. That's called rolling admissions. Most of us don't see a lot of rolling admissions because it's usually second or third tier public colleges that are usually doing rolling admissions, and they're usually pretty non-selective. Okay. The one exception that I can think of right off the top of the head is A&M. A&M does have rolling admissions, and they are very selective in some programs. So if you're applying to A&M, you definitely want to try to submit that sooner rather than later. But end of August, beginning of September is still just great. I mean, you're still not late at any stretch of the imagination. So I want to just put that out there to ease some pressure, because once August 1st hits, we've got band camp, football, we got all the preparatory stuff for school, and then most school districts are starting the second week of August, third week of August. So it's a pressure cooker. So just have a little grace. Know what Emery said is right. Most colleges don't deadline for admissions until later in the fall. If we're doing early action, early decision.
But
And
can you,
I was going to say, just to piggyback on that, A&M says you can submit your application on August 1st. It's probably not going to be reviewed until after Labor Day. So just to give you some peace of mind there, even if you submit it early, they're probably not even going to look at it for a month after that.
do you think they capture it like first come, first serve? So they may wait. They're going to start from the list who submitted first, or let matter?
Yeah, I imagine they're going to review them in the order in which they were received. But yeah, I would say a very, very small percentage of their applicants will get anything in, during those first couple of weeks of August.
Okay.
Especially because A&M specifically requires us to self-report our academic record, and the high schools will not even release the 6th semester transcript, the transcript up through the end of junior year until August 1 at the earliest. And so we can't even do that until then. So,
So you can't submit with everything except that transcript and add the transcript later? Everything has to be submitted at once to be, okay.
Well, you have to submit the A&M application first and then connect the SRAR to it. But the application is not considered complete until that the self-reported academic record is connected to that A&M application. So they could submit on August 1st. and have the application actually not be completed until August 15th or whenever we're able to do the self-reported academic record and connect that to the A&M application. I'm so sorry I'm getting so in the weeds here, but just want to give you the exceptions to the rule, if you will.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's what we're here for.
All right, gang. Well, in the interest of allowing you guys to go eat dinner, I think we will sign off. But I really, really appreciate you being here tonight. Hopefully, this wasn't totally confusing. Hopefully, this gave you some insight into what's happening here in the next couple of months. As always, if you have any questions, we're here, and you can certainly text in through your students portal, and we'll be right there for you. So, thanks again, everyone, for attending tonight. Have a great night.
Bye, guys.